Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here today. And why don't you just stop, take a break, and enjoy your favorite radio show, the Cherilyn Lee Health Show. And without further ado, your favorite radio host, Dr. Cherilyn Lee.
And thank you so much, my co-host and wonderful PR specialist, Belinda Foster. Thank you again for being with us today, another day on the Cherilyn Lee Health Show here at Inner Light Radio.
It's a pleasure. Well, it's so exciting today. We have a wonderful guest. He is incredible. The topic today is how to turn your mitochondrial on for optimal health. Please welcome Dr. Bernd Friedlander.
Thank you very much, Cherilyn Lee. I appreciate being on the show again and look forward to our conversation, as always.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to have you here. It certainly is. And before we get into turning the mitochondrial on, why don't you give our guests, our listening audience, a little physiology or history about the function of the mitochondrial?
Well, if you look at it, it's probably the first bacterial organism with a DNA that was billions of years ago in this planet, and it started every living system in this planet, as well as other planets as well. And what it is in all our cells. It's the organelle, the manufacturing facility for energy. It's like the engine for the car. It allows us to go from one distance to another distance, and that engine is fueled by energy, and that energy is ATP, and that is derived from our foods, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and sugars. And every cell has these DNA mitochondria, and without them, you and I could not function. We can't repair ourselves. We can't move our muscles. We can't have our heart functioning, our brain functioning. It gives us the fuel and energy to do everything. And usually what happens is when we get tired, we start losing the ability of these mitochondria to produce energy, and we get less of them in certain cells. And also, the mitochondria is one of the organisms in our body that actually requires a lot of fuel and energy, and therefore it's under tremendous oxidative stress. It's under it's like fueling the fire, and part of the fire, you have a lot of resins that accumulates from the fire, and we have to clean that out and keep that resins out of there and keep the mitochondria functioning. So it is the fuel, it's the engine. It was the first organism that created life.
And yes, if we have the first organism that created life, we want to definitely make sure that we keep that component of our body functioning well, because so many people have so many symptoms and not knowing, or problems and not knowing how to really activate and really get yourself more and more motion so that you feel better. And that's why we're having this wonderful show today, to try to help people to feel better in this toxic world that we're living in today, and that we have don't control on the environment, but we do have control of what we're putting in our bodies.
Well, both. Exactly. What you're saying is the environment and how we feed ourselves is very important. How we stress ourselves is very important. Very interesting. It is linked now that one of the major components in the free radical theory of aging and the theory of aging and the theory of disease is that the mitochondria is number one. If you maintain optimal level of mitochondria, then it handles virtually every component of aging as well as diseases. Because without the mitochondria, the mitochondria supports the immune system, and without the mitochondria, you don't have a strong immune system. And the immune system is there to handle bacteria, viruses, fungus, microbials, and also handle abnormal cells. And that is activated and produced by the mitochondria. And the mitochondria also help cells regulate themselves and repair themselves. So at night, while we're sleeping, we're actually repairing our body. And the mitochondria has to be an optimum level in order to help with immunity and growth and repair and handling stress and all the activity that requires the brain and the lung to function. So that's how important it is. And so we need an optimum mitochondria functioning, and also it's also related with thymus and thyroid function, and also with all the cells require the replication of every cell to repair itself, and the mitochondria handles that. Interesting enough is now the mitochondria is also linked to cancer. They're shown that if you have a strong mitochondria, optimum mitochondria, and functioning at the level it should be, it can handle the repairing mechanism of cells before they become cancerous. They turn on these genes that actually control these mechanisms that control abnormal cells. So if you have a P53, the P53 is there to handle abnormal cells. So if there's a damaged cell, the mitochondria then has to actively function and turns these genes on to suppress the cell from going further. It either replicates it and protects it from going abnormal, repairs it, or causes them to go into apoptosis. That's how important the mitochondria is. And the problem with the mitochondria, since it's a very highly active organism, it is used 24 hours a day. It also is highly susceptible to oxidative damage. And that's the key problem, that the mitochondria gets burned down, gets damaged. And there's a lot of, a byproduct of oxidative stress that goes on. And the key is how to maintain that mitochondria from becoming damaged. And our cells have the ability to recognize this, and there are many ways we can now do that through diet, exercise, and even intermittent fasting. And I think that's the area that we're going to look at.
Yes.
How to turn these mitochondria back on, but also repair them, and also prevent them from becoming damaged. Because the genes, the genetic DNA of the mitochondria is so susceptible to oxidative damage because it requires energy, and it makes energy from all our foods. And oxygen is key in breaking the foods down to energy and ATP and CO2, and then water, and then the body then utilizes this as energy form for replication, for providing nerves and muscles and other organs to function.
Yes, and I think at this point, in case someone had just tuned in to our show, we would just like to let you know that if you just tuned in, you're listening to the Cherilyn Lee Health Show with your co-host, Belinda Foster, and your host, Dr. Cherilyn Lee. And our topic today is
how to turn the mitochondrial on. And for those of you who are interested in calling in, which I'm sure you are, the phone number is 310-928-7733. And you can always email your questions to innerlightradio@yahoo.com.
Thank you very much.
So another thing what we want to do now is recognize what damages the mitochondria. And so one of the things is definitely excessive consumption of food. When you eat too much, you have to break that down, and it causes more oxygen to be released, and there's a chemical reaction that occurs, and that's called oxidation reduction. All living things have that component. Without oxidation reduction, we won't be here. All living systems, animals, even plants, require the oxidation reduction factors, and that's what created a human being. And one of the problems is sometimes we end up with higher levels of reduction, meaning when we break food down, we need that oxygen to create a reaction, a chain reaction. It's almost like a bombing reaction to convert the nutrients into fuel, and that's ATP, which is the gasoline of the car. And that gasoline needs to be cleaned up all the time, and a byproduct of that could be, carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide and lactic acid. So if we don't use the chain reaction completely, and one of the things is we want to make the cell at an oxidized state. There's a lot of research now that shows that if you maintain the cell in an oxidized state, it's linked to life extension and quality of life and less disease and aging. And how you do that is very key and component. And reduction is very crucial because it has to convert back into oxidation. So these are very common factors in our cells. We have the burning of fuel. The end result is the ATP, the fuel, and then we have reactive oxygen species that is a byproduct of excessive use, and it's a byproduct of living systems. And sometimes we produce too much of it, and we're not able to get rid of it quickly enough and fast enough. Now, one of the ways we can do that, and there's a lot of research coming out in an area called intermittent fasting, autophagy. These are the mechanisms where you put a stressor gene on because you go into a famine state. When you go into an intermittent fasting, where you fast 12, 14, 16, 18 hours, the cell turns itself on into a metabolic function, and that metabolic function is to clean the house and use the material from the house back to usable, recyclable energy. And that's how the cell does it. So, can
I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So this 14 to 16 days fasting, are you going without everything, no water, no food?
Well, here's a simple, the simplest way that I put all my patients on is I tell them not to eat late at night after 6, 7 o'clock. Stop eating. Don't eat anything else. The next day, you can have some water or tea or something as long as it's not a food item. If it's coffee, there's no cream or sugar or anything like that. If they do not eat for at least 12, 14, 16 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, then what they're doing is they're recycling the junk that's already accumulated in our cells. It's very simple. It's like house cleaning. Think of it, taking a broom and sweeping the floors and constantly putting the dirt and the dust into a dustpan, and then the dustpan you lift and put it into the garbage can, and then you take it out and you recycle it. That's what happens. That's what autophagy is. It's a chaperone-mediated function. Your body will do that efficiently all the time, but if we always eat too much and accumulate too much food, it doesn't give the chance to sweep and remove the garbage out of the system. But in a famine state or intermittent fasting, which you just do that evening to the next day, then your body will start acting in that way. It will clean up the mess inside the cell, reuse it for energy rather than accumulating as reactive oxygen species, which can cause genetic damage and can cause genetic, mitochondrial damage. And that's how you lose mitochondria, and you lose energy, and you don't have the function and the focus and the mental function, as well as the energy, the physical function.
Okay.
So if you
can you just say that one more time and kind of summarize it a little bit? I think that's very good, and I want our listening audience, because a lot of people are listening at work, so they can really grab this.
The optimum way to do this is, let's say, not to eat anything for at least 10, 12, 14 hours. And if you can do a little physical activity in the morning, something like weight training or just yoga or walking 20 minutes or 10 minutes, not heavy-duty exercise, because heavy-duty exercise can cause more oxidative damage, because you're breaking more, you're breaking down food, but you're using oxygen to do that, and the end result is highly oxidative stress. And so you don't want that. So you want a mild, core exercise where you do just a little push-ups, dips, chin-ups, things that are using your own body's resistive way, or just walking up and down stairs or a little jump rope. You don't need much activity. Then that starts that whole cascade of recycling the junk, that's damaged, the misfolding protein, all that before it accumulates and causes genetic damage.
Okay.
And that gets used for energy. It's a recycling ability that our body has. And then you can do that. Now, sometimes other ways of doing that is one day you eat just fruits and vegetables and nothing else. And then you're causing a sort of a different stressor on the body. The next day you eat just a high-fat and high-protein diet, but not a lot, just small portions, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. Then another day you may want to eat only carbohydrate foods. Now you're causing different kinds of stressors to occur in our body. Again, that turns on our recycling mechanism.
So when you say carbohydrate foods, which are you referring to? I know you're not.
We're talking about, if you're gonna have your grains, that's when you have your grains. If you're gonna have your bread, your whole grain bread, if you're gluten intolerant, one of the things, if you eat the same food every day, you cause a lot of problems, and that causes gut problems, irritable bowel syndrome, celiac colitis, because you're eating constantly the same food, and sometimes the immune system gets sort of triggered on that. So if you alternate different food every other day or every day, then you don't trigger that autoimmune function. You don't have that activation, and that's how you prevent from autoimmune diseases or gut issues and other issues like that.
I just this week had a patient, not to cut you off, who actually went on she thought it was a special diet where she was only eating one type of food for over 2 months. Just one type. I mean, it was all vegetables and everything, but she didn't deviate. She didn't deviate at all from the 5 vegetables that she was eating, and she came in and couldn't figure out why she was so tired and weak.
Yes, you can't do that. First of all, you cannot do one group of foods for that long a period of time, because then you create a lot of problems with the stomach and the pancreas and the liver, as well as the insulin function. And so you want to intermittently change the diet. One of the things we do a lot in practice is that we make sure that you have the right protein, because without protein, you and I wouldn't be here, okay? It is the amino acids, the peptides that make a new nerve, a new muscle, the extracellular matrix of all cells. Without that, you don't have proper mitochondrial function, okay? The extracellular matrix is the cell membrane that houses the internal cytoplasm of the cell, which has your nucleus, DNA, the chromosomes, all the genetic information. And that is controlled by the efficient proteins that are outside the extracellular matrix, and then you have lipids that are controlling that, and water in between there. So one of the key components that handles the extracellular matrix is collagen. So all my patients for the last 20-somewhat years, 30 years, I've been promoting collagen-type foods, high-rich gelatin kind of foods. If they can't get that, then we give them collagen powders, and these are all naturally, enzymatically processed with grass-fed cows, and that's how we use it. And we make sure that they get the right fats, which is some forms of saturated cholesterol fats, coconut oil, palm oil, MCT oil. These are rich lipids that also encapsulate the cell membrane. Once you fortify and strengthen the cell membrane, everything internally works more efficiently, and even the mitochondria, because you allow nutrients to come in and you detoxify the cells, removing the waste out of there. Even if you do recycling and you do what's called autophagy, if you don't have the proper cell membrane, the extracellular matrix, it won't allow efficient removal of toxins and waste and misfolding protein and oxidative damage to come out. It stays in the cell because it meets that criteria of proper lipids and fats and proteins. So one of the things I recommend is that people go back to our ancient type of civilization and look at what they ate. They did eat, they were hunters and gatherers, and they ate fish and game, and they were all natural because they were all naturally grass-fed. They weren't grain-fed, and that's what you want to do. And you don't need a lot of protein. You need 15 to 30 grams a day of collagen in your body, and that supports the connective tissue, the bones, the tendons, the ligaments, and every organ has some component of collagen in there. And the mitochondria is also supported by collagen as well in the extracellular matrix of the mitochondria, so it allows for proper information and communication and cell function. So another thing we do also is by reducing the amount of stress in the body. That means meditation, go to bed, don't think of anything stressful. Remove all the electromagnetic pollution that's in your bedroom so you can sleep better, and that's what creates the function. And another thing we find is that I give everybody a B3 niacinamide, 200 milligram, and that also creates mitochondrial function. It gets the NAD, which is the oxidation factor, which I told you, if you keep the cell in an oxidized form, it will live a longer, lifespan. It will have an extended lifespan because that's the key component for life extension is oxidizing the cell and maintaining that. So niacinamide is a B3 complex. It's a non-flush form, and that has been shown to increase NAD to NADH levels, and that's also a very important factor. Biquinol, CoQ10, also helps with mitochondria function because it is also an electron donor, and so it's part of the oxidation factors of the cells in reduction cells.
Exactly. And I don't mean to cut you off again, but I am for the sake of because all Q10s, people need to know, are not all created equal. So if you can kind of shed a little light on that, because a lot of people still with the over the counter certain things here and there, and they're not they don't react the same on the body.
Well, when you're younger, you can handle ubiquins and all the ubiquinones much easier because your body is able to assimilate it more efficiently. After the age of 40, more people have a more difficult time really handling the CoQ10, so they need a biquinol, which is a more state of oxidation reduction state. It allows the cells to be more in that form where it processes oxidation reduction more efficiently. And the biquinol is assimilated much more efficiently. But if you if you take the ubiquinones and you take it with fat, and we tell people to consume some form of fat with it, a good fat, not a polyunsaturated fat, but a good fat, they will assimilate the ubiquinones as well. Even people in their 50s or 60s, they will be able to consume it and be able to handle it. The ubiquinol, it is much more absorbed. It's broken down in the cell. It goes through the gut much more efficiently. And, that's the choice of anybody after the age of 40. But younger people, they have an efficient metabolism, and if they take some fat with it, they will handle either form. And, again, it's important. Most people have enough CoQ10 in their body if they properly eat the right fruits and vegetables and consume the right proteins, because, animal proteins and that's where you're going to get the CoQ10 from, is from those animals' rich sources, especially the grass-fed animals. They have the higher sources of CoQ10 and omega-3s and CLA, and that's what you want. And so it's important that you look at also the thyroid, because the thyroid works hand in hand with the mitochondria. If the thyroid's not functioning right, then the mitochondria is also suppressed. And the mitochondria helps to produce thyroid function and hormone function, T3, T4, and so you need all of that. And the thyroid is very important in metabolic function. So most people are very low in thyroid function. And as a matter of fact, almost everyone I've seen in my practice will have some issue of thyroid dysfunction. And a lot of it is due to the stresses out there, the environmental stresses, the heavy radiation from computers and telephones and cell phones, because the thyroid is very highly susceptible to electromagnetic fields and also to chlorine and fluoride in our water.
And also the mercury, dental mercury in your teeth.
Exactly, and all that amalgam things. So, and also if you're not getting enough iodine in your diet and selenium and vitamin A, those are the three components that the thyroid needs: iodine, vitamin A, and selenium. And also, if you're not taking good proteins, the protein really is crucial for thyroid function. And most people who are low in protein will always have thyroid deficiency and hormonal problems, etc., and they don't sleep well at night.
Exactly. And again, I'd like to just back up a little bit on the iodine, because we know that, again, a lot of times people will hear that and they'll just go and pick up iodine, from various stores, and again, they're not all created equal. And I know some people were doing the iodine skin test and thought that was enough iodine absorbed through the body from the skin to help support their thyroid gland. So can you just shed a little light on what are the best types of iodine and why?
Well, I found that, if you get, one of the really simplest and best form of iodine is really get it from your foods. And seaweed, eating seaweed is a phenomenal, source of iodine. If you get a couple, times a week where you have some form of wild salmon or some cod, true cod, something that's wild, you're going to get some source of iodine from there. There's potassium iodine, which we use more for radiation problems. And then there's, natural iodine from seaweed and algae. And those are good sources, and the body doesn't need as much. One of the problems we're also seeing is because our sea salt is also demineralized from iodine. They remove iodine from our salt. And naturally, and good sources of salt will have natural form of iodine. And if you understand, we're a living being that comes from the ocean. Everything was developed from the ocean, and that's where even the organelle, the mitochondria, derived itself from the ocean. We are an iodine-rich, salt-rich kind of human being, and so taking a little sea salt with iodine that has a natural form of iodine a day is one of the best things to control electrical problems in our body. And I usually tell people to have a little half a teaspoon of salt at night before they go to bed. It really allows them to sleep better. And they don't wake up tired, and they don't have those leg cramps anymore. So that's really the best sources of iodine that I've seen out there.
And a half a teaspoon of sea salt at bedtime with iodine is okay if a person has high blood pressure, because sometimes
absolutely there's a lot of evidence that salt is so crucial, in natural salt, in controlling the chemical reaction that goes on with potassium and sodium.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I have used that sea salt at night with iodine, and I have been able to restore people's high blood pressure back to normal. And a little potassium, magnesium during the day is what I use.
Yes, because the potassium is so important with high blood pressure, and people are leaving that one out and just forgot about it. Because years ago, in medicine, when I worked, in hospitals and clinics, they used to give Lasix and potassium. That was the treatment years ago. And then a dear colleague of mine, a friend of mine, he started doing some research, and I think the research was done that was showing it wasn't the Lasix that was really helping the people, it was really the potassium.
Right, exactly. And a good source, again, if it's a good source of sea salt, it will have a good amount of natural potassium in there. And again, potassium and salt are so crucial in balancing the electrical system in our body. We need some of both. And again, and I find that, by controlling the electrical system, because we're an electrical chemical being, and you need the right elements. You need the calcium, magnesium, the micronutrients that we're not getting, from nature. And there's a lot of them naturally in our vegetables and fruit, and especially if it's grown in a high organic area where the soil is rich. And we want to maintain a rich mineral soil, not just selenium, but we need all the other minerals in our soil because that's where our nutrients come from. So we need to have that. And so it's very crucial that, we maintain, the proper electrical components such as calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, all of that. And that's very important in mitochondria function. I find that people who go off calcium supplementation, they also have problems with mitochondrial function because the mitochondria needs calcium as well for its proper nutritional balance, its electrical function in the cell for electron and donation and reduction state. So those are very important that one look at all these things and understand how the body works. And also, we found that, if we can activate the citric acid cycle and the Krebs cycle, which is important, and that's how the mitochondria functions, then you're going to need the B complex, B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, and B12. They're very important. Most people are B12 deficient as well. And when they are deficient, they feel very tired throughout the day. They don't sleep well. So sublingual methylcobalamin is ideal. It works just as well as an intramuscular one.
Yes, it does.
And so we need all that. And that,
a lot of my patients stopped coming in for the methylcobalamin B12 shot and said, I'll just, because I started them on the sublingual, the one that they take under their tongue. And they're saying, I have the same amount of energy. So they're really happy about that.
Yeah, unless, someone in the very beginning stages that are dealing with severe problem, they're going to need the intramuscular to get them going, to get them started. Because it's going to take them maybe a month or two that the intramuscular is going to work faster. So after that, once you balance them, they can just do it on their own.
Right. Now, I want to back up again because of the fact that we're talking about the mitochondrial. Now, I know I've done tests, oxidative stress, to see how much, I used to do the test a long time ago, but basically you can tell about a person's symptoms that they're low and feeling bad. Do you do any type of blood tests to really find out maybe where a person is? I haven't.
A good physician, when I'm not in practice anymore, but I do ask that I do request a number of areas for them to look at. One of the areas that I really want people to know is, your CO2, carbon monoxide levels, potassium level, calcium, magnesium, vitamin D levels are. It's very important where you are with hemioxygenase because that's a key component in balancing everything that goes on in our blood and providing energy to our cells. It is always good to know where your homocysteine levels are, where your B12 are, B6 levels.
You see reactive protein.
Acid.
Yeah, these are all the tests that we do here at Nutrimed. We definitely do all the blood tests.
Yeah, and also...
The SpectraCell, we actually do a lot of their trace nutritional blood testing too. Yeah, and you want to know what the micronutrients are, levels, because they're very important in all systems in our body, and as well as you want to know where you are with fibrinogen. And I, doing a plasminogen activator inhibitor, which is called PI1, PA1. Very important to know also how your blood is doing. If it's clotting, how much is it clotting? Is it genetics and all of that? And then you want to support that with vitamin K and serapeptase and nattokinase and all that.
The blood is so important. It's the river of our body, and everything flows through the blood. And without that, the cells and the organs and the system doesn't work. And so you need to have the right nourishment in the blood, and the amount of oxygen that it carries is important for, energy.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to cover all the bases, and we actually, it's been wonderful. It's one of the doctors that actually you introduced me to, who's been a guest on the show in talking about the Pi-1 testing has been phenomenal, and I thank you for that too.
Yes, yeah, it's very, it's a simple test. It will determine your condition to having a heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. That's how easy it is. And then by monitoring your program, you can see the results by watching the Pi-1 going down and how important that is, And it's so crucial that just something like that could be a major factor.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, we have several individuals who are writing in this is fantastic. They have some very nice comments and questions. One in particular, Joseph says, Dr. Cherilyn Lee, thank you so much for having Dr. Friedlander on this morning. I have a question about fasting. How often should an individual fast to promote wellness? And is there... Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, some people will take 1 day a week and they will just fast, drinking water. Okay, that's fine. I'm not in the favor of people fasting 2 or 3, 4, 7 days. That puts more stress on the body than it's good. Because the body doesn't... But if you fast intermittently, like once a week, that's fine. What I find the best way to do it, and some people that I've followed and studied, they're doing very well with, they actually consume no food until 5 o'clock in the evening, and then they will eat only for 2 hours the right amount of food that establishes them to function next day. And that means, and some people will, just have a lot of green leaves and vegetables and some nuts, not much, but and a lot of different forms of fermented foods like kefir, yogurt, Greek yogurt, that kind of food. So what they do, they've been practicing for 20 to 40 years now, where they eat nothing all day until the evening, and then they'll eat for a couple hours the right amount of food. And next day, they're able to function all day without getting tired, because what happens is the body utilizes the energy for energy manufacturing functions. So that means during the day, the body doesn't have to conserve itself to digestion at all. Okay?
Wonderful.
It is using energy. So they've done many years of this, and as a matter of fact, 5, 10, 15, 20 years successfully. Now, other groups that I follow and I've trained is where they try to do at least a 12-hour fast every day. And that you can do every day. Don't eat anything from the last meal to the next day for 12 hours. Then maybe once in a while, increase it to 12, 13 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, 20 hours. But you don't have to do it every single day. You can do it once or twice a week. But I do recommend if you do at least the 12, 14 hours every day, it's not that hard, because while you're sleeping, you really should be concentrating on energy building and repairing mechanism and growth hormone mechanism. Actually, I'm not in favor of growth hormone, because growth hormone is linked to aging and cancer and other things like that.
Right.
But there's other growth factors.
Can we pick this up in just a second? Because we do have a caller. Caller, can you state your name and where you're calling from, please?
Hi, my name is Kayla, and I'm calling from the Antelope Valley. Hello, doctor.
Hi, how are you?
Good morning, and thank you for calling.
Good morning. Oh, my pleasure. I just want to start off with, you guys are a wealth of information, and my question is regarding diet. I have hyperthyroidism. what is the best way for me to eat? Should I isolate and consume one type of food per day or combine them?
Let me ask you, what have you been doing? And then I can look at and see what you've done. Yeah. What kind of diet have you been putting yourself on?
Well, currently I'm just on basically an organic foods diet. I start off the morning with a smoothie mixed with fruits and vegetables. I'll have a snack, and that'll be like a protein, whether it's almond butter and an apple or boiled eggs. And, you know, I'll have a regular lunch, some grains and some protein and another vegetable, another salad, and then I'll have a dinner. I was on medication. I just had a baby, and I was on medication to suppress the TSH. And now I'm off the medication because I'm breastfeeding, and I just want to know what would be the best way to eat, the best supplements to take to kind of regulate that thyroid. And I heard you say that the thyroid is also highly associated with the Krebs cycle as far as energy and mitochondria. I've had no problems with my energy level.
Yeah.
But I want to know, in your professional opinion, what would be some good supplements and the best way for me to eat to maintain my energy level?
Okay, so have you measured yourself to see what your, like an underarm thermometer you take in the morning before you get out of bed to see where your temperature is every day? Because it's very important to know where you are. Is it 98 or is it below? Is it above 98, 99? Then we know where your thyroid's functioning. And the best way to do it is just take a thermometer before you get out of bed and put it under the armpit and do it for 1 minute and test yourself for 5 days in a row. The other thing is what I would do is definitely, my recommendation would be is look at your diet a little bit differently. If you're going to have, let's say, protein, do you do any grass-fed beef or lamb or buffalo, any of those types of foods?
Yes, I do grass-fed beef about 3 times per week. Okay,
and you do also fish?
Yes, I do wild salmon almost every day.
Okay, and is your weight okay? Do you have problems with weight issues?
I do. I've collected some pounds from my 2 previous pregnancies.
Yeah. Okay, that's normal. Okay. Well, again, what I would do very important in the morning, if you're going to do, I would definitely put myself in and try not to eat for 10 to 12 hours. You can have water, and then what I would do is do a little morning stretching, flexibility kind of thing, nothing more. Maybe a little something. And then I would look at my first meal to be predominantly protein and fat. And when I talk about fat, you need fat to activate the system. Coconut oil, MCT oil, you can take it like, and you can go on a website called Vitamin Monkey. Just go into Vitamin Monkey. Just think of Vitamin Monkey. And what you see is this form of MCT. People take that and they seem to get a lot of energy, and it regulates the thyroid to function again. Coconut oil and MCT oil is very important for proper thyroid function, regulating it back to normal, okay? And I would say a tablespoon of MCT oil, which is what I do, or coconut oil is a second way. That will regulate the thyroid to function again. But I would look at a soft-boiled egg or poached eggs. You want to have free-range, natural eggs, and you want to keep the egg yolk loose. That's the secret, is the yolk has all the nutrients for life. Without the yolk has the vitamin A, the beta-carotenes, it has the phospholipids, it's got all the nutrients that makes a new cell. That's why the yolk is so important. But once we cook the yolk, we oxidate it and we change the component of the egg and makes it into an allergen rather than being something. The other thing is Greek yogurt with fruits is fine. The berries, the wild berries, the higher pigmentation foods are very important. People don't understand how important your fruits and vegetables, the dark, different colors of pigmentation, yellow, orange, green, purple, blue, all of those have very important nutrients. And I would, and make sure not large quantities of protein, not large quantities of food, but eating more smaller meals.
Yes.
Especially now. And I would definitely, I'm going to tell you, in 30, 40 years of doing research in sports nutrition, working with 80, 84, and 88 Olympics, and working with cancer patients, collagen, if you take 15 to 50 grams of collagen a day, that will restore elasticity, bone density. It is the cell matrix of all extracellular matrix. And that's why I say Vitamin Monkey, you can look into that. They have all the references and all the information there and the way to get a hold of the right collagen. I would start with 15 grams of collagen in the morning, 15 in the afternoon, and 15 in the evening, and that will give you the proper diet, that the high rich gelatin diet. The glycine is so important because virtually every single system in our body is made out of that. And then fruits and vegetables as much as you can, not a problem with that. And that's what I would do. And then, again, measure your thyroid by the temperature and see where you are. And if it's overactive, then what happens is you may have an autoimmune reaction going on to something you're eating. And and that's where you need to know if your selenium levels are low or your vitamin A levels
D3
are
low. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your B3. Niacinamide is the best thing to regulate all mitochondria function and as well as the thyroid.
Okay, because my TSH is 0.002. I do have lab work that I do frequently.
Yeah, and that's not bad. You want to have a low TSH. Actually, it's the opposite. You want to have a very low level in order to maintain health. So that's not
lower
a problem.
than the normal range.
Yeah.
It's much lower than the normal range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And are you how old are you?
I'm 35.
Yeah, you're getting, again, make sure you have the proper, you're getting enough iodine through seaweed and, regulate it with proper minerals, calcium, magnesium, vitamin D. Are you doing any vitamin D at all?
Yes, I do. I have a vitamin D3.
How much are you taking of that?
I'm taking 75,000 IUs a day.
No, not 75,000.
No.
You mean 7,500.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 7,500 per day.
That's a big difference. Okay.
Yeah. 5,000 is what I recommend, but in the wintertime, 10,000, summertime, 2,000 to 5,000.
Okay.
But, yeah, and that's what I would do. But look at, like I said, MCT, coconut, and collagen. Those three things, I've been able to regulate thyroid function back to normal.
Very good. Very good.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
And thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much for calling. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Thank you.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And we have another caller who's been patiently on hold. Caller, can you state your name and where you're calling from and your question? Thank you so much again for calling.
Yes, my name is Devonay Unleashed. I'm loving the show today, Dr. Lee. My question for you is, the young lady that was just on was speaking of eating salmon, and with all of the things that are going on with our the ocean and the oil spills and the fish being contaminated and too much mercury in some of these fishes, and actually they've started to genetically modify salmon. Is it a good idea to continue to eat this type of fish, or how can you find out if it's good enough for you?
Good question. Yeah.
It is a good question.
First I would look at, make sure it is called wild Alaskan salmon, okay? And more towards the colder the ocean and the further towards Alaska, there's less mercury problems there, okay? So you're not going to have a problem there. Number two, farm-raised salmon, the color is different. You're not going to see that beautiful pink, dark orange color. So wild Alaskan salmon, and I'm not saying to eat it every day. Once a week is enough. You know what's another great source of nutrients that people don't even use? Sardines. Wild sardines. the smaller the fish is, like sardines, the less contaminated they're going to be.
Exactly.
And sardines are one of the richest sources of DNA and RNA nutrients, and also omega-3. So I would also look at sardines, anchovies, and herring, things like that. So you make a change.
Well, you know, Doc, sometimes, going back to what you were talking about, the coloring of the salmon, like they do some of the ground beef now, they're putting this color onto it to make it look
nice,
really fresh. Yes, but thank you so much.
You just got to have to find a store that you value their, quality and make sure they don't do that.
Thank you so much.
And if you give us a call here at NutriMed Integrated Healthcare, I can tell you about a couple stores. And actually, you can order the wild salmon. I don't have the website handy, but if you give us a call, it is actually Alaskan salmon. It's very good. You can call us here.
I think it's Vital Choice, isn't it?
Vital Choice? I think it is.
Yeah, they're one of the best, and they do care for their quality of fish. That they have the best fish by far. Yes, absolutely.
VitalChoice.com?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for calling, Devaney Unleashed.
Thank you.
Okay, I know my co-host had questions for you, but we had callers, so we were taking those calls.
Isn't this fantastic? Everyone is so excited about this subject and about our guest today. And for those of you who are listening in, you're listening to, once again, the Cherilyn Lee Health Show, and with our very special guest, Dr. Bernd Friedlander. And, of course, the subject is how to turn your mitochondrial on for optimal health.
Most definitely.
Okay, and there's several questions here. I'm just going to pull up the next one here. Okay. Oh, this one is interesting as well. Dear Dr. Lee, thank you so much for your wonderful radio show. I tune in on a regular basis. My question today involves the subject of, wait, hold on. This email, I just dropped it. Wait, hold on. Let me put it back up. My subject today involves the subject of insomnia. Okay. I eat pizza late at night to put myself right, to put myself to sleep because I work till late, and when I get in, I like to order a pizza. I will not name the company here. After listening to the show now, I realize I need to eliminate this habit of mine. What can I do to be able to go to sleep when I come in from being wound up most of the day?
That's a good one because that's a common
yes, it is.
That I see a lot of people.
Oh, so do I.
One is you do not want any carbohydrates before you go to bed, okay?
No,
and that
absolutely.
dough. Now, I don't mind you having a piece of cheese or Greek yogurt or cottage cheese or something like that. Some people, they like to take a celery and they put almond or peanut butter as long as it's organic and natural, and they'll eat that. You want a little fat, you want a little protein, you want a simple complex carbohydrate from vegetable source. That's a good, like celery or anything like carrots or something. You do not want and don't eat a lot at night either, because then your body works totally to digestion, and you never have a chance to turn on your REM state of sleep, which is the repairing mechanism. The other thing is very important is not to go to bed late. Once you pass 10 o'clock, your body's ability to repair and regenerate is lost. So at 10 o'clock, your thyroid immunity starts working to repair itself. So the idea is try to get yourself into bed before 11, ideally, okay?
Yes.
And if you don't, you're going to have a really serious problem. Number two is go to a hardware store anywhere and buy a regular red light bulb or orange light bulb and put it next to you for about 5-10 minutes before you go to bed or during that late afternoon, early evening. That will trigger the pineal gland, pituitary gland, the hypothalamus to produce melatonin to release properly. So the other thing is That's
Oh,
very
see,
important. Yeah.
that is wonderful. So it's
Yeah.
a red or
Orange light actually is identical to our human system's natural circadian light, okay? And that will put you into a deeper state of sleep. Number 2, the most important thing you can do, and probably number 1 on my list, after diet, do not eat a rich carbohydrate diet. Cortisol level goes up, DHA level goes down, all of that. So also take some magnesium, a little calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin K at night. It will help you to go to sleep better. And some people need melatonin. Now, if it's difficult to get you to sleep cycle, yes, melatonin will work for the first month. You can take as much as 20 milligrams a night and then reduce it slowly down to 1 milligram a night. But if you can do these other things first, I would rather do that.
most
Number
definitely.
2, remove all your electrical appliances out of the bedroom. That means turn off every appliance, unplug everything. Do not have your head near a circuit breaker or an outlet, anything, because the electrical noise will influence your type of sleep. One of the best things is take a circuit breaker and just turn off your bedroom. Just turn that whole electrical system off in the bedroom. You will sleep like a log because then there's no electromagnetic influence going into your brain. So that's really what you need to do is red light, do not eat heavy at night, have more consumption of a good fat with a protein, and that will satisfy the sciatic center of the brain. So you feel full, it doesn't need any more, and it's going to feel satisfied for about 4 to 8 hours while you go to sleep. You need at least 7-8 hours of deep sleep. You need to get into 4 REMs to stay to sleep. There is not a pill out there that will do anything better than that.
Yes. That is so true.
Absolutely wonderful information. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
This is wonderful. And I know we're almost out of time here, but I want to sort of do a recap, if you don't mind, Dr. Friedlander.
All right. Definitely number 1 is to get a good night's sleep. Do not eat a high carbohydrate diet. More of a good protein and fat diet before going to bed is fine. Make sure you get plenty of your fruits and vegetables during the day. You get your lycopenes, from the orange, and then your vitamin C from your natural sources and all the pigmentation. Intermittent fasting, meaning if you can fast 10 to 12, 14 hours a day before you have your first meal, you will do what's called autophagy, which is how you get rid of the junk before it builds up in your body. If you can't do that, then once a week do an intermittent fasting where you eat nothing or don't eat the same groups of foods every single day. Niacinamide, which is the simplest, most inexpensive nutrient out there, will help with mitochondrial energy and support mitochondrial function by keeping NAD to NAD ratios high. Positive attitude. Get quality of good light, meaning get some outdoor lighting. Very important. Red light. Orange light, if you're going to be indoors, stimulate yourself as much as you can with those lights. And again, do not consume a high amount of foods. We don't need a lot of foods. If we can conserve our body by providing more energy to our brain and our lungs and our heart rather than our digestive system, then we're going to live longer.
I was just telling you just yesterday in a conversation that I pulled up a YouTube lecture you had done, and my goodness, because I haven't seen you in a couple of years here, and you look so much younger. So you're definitely following your program because you look absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you. No, I've been sort of into. I learned about health in the early 70s when I got into physical therapy, and I started learning about nutrition and diet and all of that. And, today I probably know more, because of the things I've done in the past, what I've done right and wrong, and learning from my patients and sort of understanding how the cell really functions. Once we understand who we are, it's much easier to...
Most definitely. And we're about to close here, too. And so I want to say, Dr. Friedlander, if people want to call you, do you have a number they can call you, or...
it is best that
website.
they can look up vitaminmonkey.net. You can communicate with them.
Okay.
Or you can go, I'll give you an email. It's DRB Friedlander, David Robert Boy Friedlander, spelling of my last name, Friedlander, at Comcast.net.
Okay.
And I will have a website coming up under Dr. Bernd Friedlander, so you can go into Dr. Bernd Friedlander. There'll be a website coming up very shortly, and we probably have something up there now.
Okay. I just want to say, if you want to share this show with your friends, family, please, you'll be able to go to the Dr. Cherilyn Lee Health Show.fm, click onto YouTube, and it will be posted there tomorrow. So please, that's where our shows will be archived from this day on. So you'll be able to, if you missed any shows, go to the Cherilyn Lee Health Show.fm, and you can see all of our past shows. I want to thank you so much again, Dr. Friedlander, for being a guest today. And my co-host, Belinda Foster, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. It's a pleasure.
You're listening to, again, the Cherilyn Lee Health Show with your host, Dr. Cherilyn Lee, and we will listen for us for next week. We have wonderful guests every week. We do appreciate you. Thank you so much. And as I always end the show, please repeat after me. I am so grateful that I am a magnet for miracles. And thank you for sending me the emails of your wonderful miracles, and we'll be sharing those very soon. Thank you very much. And you need to contact us. You can call us here at Nutrimed Integrated Healthcare, 310-419-4300. Again, thank you so very much for tuning in to your healing frequency.